Hello and welcome. This is Katy. Thanks so much for stopping by. I am back with another project for Maker Forte. And today we're going to start our holiday card series and create text backgrounds. Now, this is great for any word holiday stamps that you have. Super easy to do, quick to replicate. And now I've got a bunch of holiday stamp sets from Maker Forte, but we're going to focus on the Build a Modern Christmas and the Poinsettia stamp sets. I've got some green color hive inks, I've got some clear embossing powder, and I've got some telephone box, a nice red for Christmas, and some water in a spray bottle. I'm using some hot pressed watercolor paper. Strathmore makes a really good one. The Arches is just what I had handy. So starting with some Cotswold green, we're going to spray the watercolor paper with our water and then dip it into our ink. Just something a little bit different. And I'm taking my heat gun, you could use a hairdryer here, just to dry and absorb up some of that water. And now I'm coming in with some palm tree and Everglades and adding water to that on my glass mat and mixing it together. And now I'll dip in the Cotswold green watercolor panel into that palm tree and Everglades mixture. I am adding a little bit of water onto the watercolor paper just to give a little bit better blend from the smushing, and then just taking the heat gun again and drying that. It does, at this point, you don't need it to be perfectly dry. We're not embossing on this, so you don't have to make sure that it's completely dry. Do keep in mind we're going to do some stamping, so it does need to be dry to the touch, not you just don't want it moist. So coming in with the Build a Modern Christmas stamps, we're going to take a bunch of the words and fill up our panel. Now the panel that I'm using today measures 4 by 5.25, and great little size, gives you a little border, on your card base. And so once I get this filled in, I'm going to have a little spot at the bottom that we'll fill in after we get all of the main panel stamped. So using some Everglades ink, I'm going to stamp this 3 times. So our background's not super dark. So Everglades is perfect to coordinate with, because one, we had Everglades in there with our mix, right? And then Everglades is nice and dark green, so it's a great overlay stamp. You could use black if you wanted to, but keeping with the green and red theme. What's nice about this is you can do a bunch of these ink smushed panels and then come in with the coordinating colors, the darkest of your color that you used to do your word stamping. And so I'm just filling in that last little piece there down at the bottom right with the word peace, and that's going to fill in our panel. Now, there's a couple ways that you can wrap this up. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about stamping at the beginning and the ends of the words and filling that in. I am going to add a little gold embossed edge around the panel. You could also take some of your rectangle dies and create some frames out of either white cardstock, gold cardstock, red cardstock, and create a frame border around. But I opted to go with some gold just for something a little bit different. I always like that little gold trim around some cards. So using the little powder brush, there's a really nice fine edge on the opposite end of the fluffy brush. These are great for your kaleidoscope powders, but it's also great to clean up the edge of your embossing powder, as you see that I'm doing here. Now I'm only doing the one side and an end piece. That way I don't have to worry about when I'm holding my cardstock, as you see here, as I'm embossing and heat setting, that I'm brushing away the embossing powder. So now once I got done with that, I went and did the other 2 edges, and it's very subtle. Now if you want a thicker border, just add more embossing ink around, make that border a little bit wider. I wanted to keep it just as a fine detailed edge to give it a little bit of shimmer in the light. Now, I'm using the Poinsettia stamp set for the peace and joy. I wanted a bold sentiment. And so inking up in some telephone box. I'm going to stamp it twice just so I get even stamping. You're going to see it's a bit splotchy there up on the P and the E. And taking my powder tool once I got that double stamped, and now I'm going to go over with some Versamark. So any clear embossing ink, but I'm using Versamark today, and I'm going to clear emboss this. So using some of the Maker Forte clear embossing powder, and I will heat set that, and that's going to keep that telephone box, you know, protected and sealed in, but it's also going to give it a little bit of shine. And now I'm just taking the paper trimmer and creating some, you know, sentiment strips from it. But to have it be a little bit more cohesive, I'm going to add that same gold border around each of the words and the ampersand, and cleaning that off so we get a nice straight edge. And then I'm heat setting that. I do go get my little hook tools from Maker Forte to grip that so that I can not burn my fingers. So, excuse me, using some double-sided adhesive, I'm going to add that to an A2 size card base, and then just stagger the peace and joy onto the panel. Quick and easy. You could whip these out in a couple of hours to make a quick set. You know, doing the ink smushing, letting it dry and things like that. You could also, you know, add some clear embossing ink to the words on the main background, and it just gives you a bunch of ideas to work with. But that's going to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Be sure and check the description box below for products used, and thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next video.